So Beth, it's been a couple of months now since we had the women's test back in Harama. I wonder if you could talk us through it and any of the successes and positives that you've seen from it, not only from sort of a recognition point of view, but also from a sporting perspective.
Well, it's been really great feedback. I think that the most interesting thing about it is the people that noticed that it happened, right? I mean, because it was the first of its kind to have an FIA World Championship that dedicated an entire sporting session to having women in the car. And so to have 18 women there was really an exciting moment for racing in general. And I love that we were able to make that happen. I think the most important thing that came out of it is all of the teams were able to meet some of these drivers that they didn't really know. And that was really one of the things that was driving us to do it. Oftentimes you see some of the same drivers get opportunity after opportunity. Yeah. So what we wanted to do was get them a new list of drivers that are either ready now or might be ready in the next 3 years or 5 years, and to kind of just open up their eyes.
Well, you touched a little bit on it there, but we got to learn a lot from it. People outside got to learn a lot about these drivers.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit more about the conversations you had with the drivers themselves, about their experience of the Gen 3 Evo, and also working with teams like we have here.
I think what was amazing is, most of these women had never been in a Formula E car. They hadn't even seen a Formula E car really on track. So what was really great too was to get their feedback. They all loved the car. They thought it was just so fun to drive. So, obviously super direct steering, all of those things. Harama's a great track. Very few, I don't think any of them had been there before either. So just the idea of driving a new place, every driver likes to go somewhere new. So somewhere new in a rocket ship, that makes sense. Those are the ingredients for a fun day. But then the conversations we had, it was the right conversations before and after with these drivers of why are we doing this, right? Because they wanted to know too, like, is there really an opportunity? Because if we want to get women on the grid, people need to hire women. And so we had to have that conversation of, is there an open seat right now? No, there isn't. But let's make sure that you know that before you come to this day, and so that you have your expectations set where they need to be. And then afterward was getting all that great feedback. What's great too is now that we also know these women, and we have this great sort of cadre of women that we can continue this dialogue with, they're helping us in our development of our Gen 4 car. So the next race car that we're already working on, we can get some of their feedback to make sure that this car is also something that they're going to be excited to drive.
I think I want to actually follow up on that. You mentioned the fact that they're helping with the Gen 4 development. Is that also an interesting thing to have this collection of women, because you have such a varied level of experience? Some like Alicia Pomorski, who's only just started in single seaters, all the way up to the likes of Simona de Silvestro, who've done so much in their careers.
Exactly. And there's a bit of both, and you get different feedback from exactly that. Somebody that's just getting into this, and then remember too, driving an electric race car has a whole different set of disciplines that these drivers need to learn. So that was also interesting for them to learn battery management, energy management on a lap. No matter what, like, simulators are great and they've come a long way, but there's nothing like being behind the wheel. So I think that the day in general, everybody came away with a positive reaction, because there's no substitute for seat time, and just giving them that seat time was great, because wherever they land this season, that day and those couple of hours have value.
It's really way of putting it. And Formula E recently announced a strategic partnership with More Than Equal, a £125,000 investment on women's racing future. Can you explain to me a little bit more about what More Than Equal is and what this investment might actually end up doing?
Being an FIA World Championship, we're in a unique position where not only do we have, I think, a responsibility to impact the future, but we have the ability to as well. And so we're trying to be very pragmatic about how we affect change. And we are in positions of hiring people. We're in positions of creating the rules, impacting the rules. And so we now are thinking of every step of the series. What are those conscious decisions that we can make to make this a better place for women to be behind the wheel and in the paddock? The partnership with More Than Equal, we're so excited about, because it's really just this initial research piece to find out what makes for a great Formula E driver.
Okay.
Regardless of gender, right? Because again, there's a skill set that is unique to become a Formula E champion. What does it take? Yes, it's driving around the track in the fastest lap, but that energy management is so critical. And so if we can do this deep dive of what it's like to work in this paddock and be a championship winning team in this paddock, and what are all those individual contributions, let's find what that is. Then let's look at it through the optics of gender. And all right, what can we do to optimize to make sure that we have equal? The barriers that we've identified could be social, technical, or structural. Structural could be the rules. What if the rules limit things? Structural could be, how do we cover maternity leave for teams? Does that maybe have them not hire women as often? all these little things that you start peeling back the layers and you're like, oh my goodness, we can change this. And will it affect the outcome? If it will affect the outcome positively, then we can look to see if it's something we can change.
That's so exciting. And I want to touch a little bit more on those next kind of short-term and then long-term, the more concrete steps. Because right up until now, Formula E hasn't just been talk. We've been doing action, we've been doing things like this test. Where do we go from here?
I think what's really remarkable is a lot of it, what we know about getting women excited about being in this industry is, and this is something that I've worked very hard on in my own career, is making sure that women know that this is available to them. And part of that is just by lifting the veil on what, because yes, you see the driver, but you don't know that there's 40 other people on the team and what are they doing, and let alone the series, and what does it take to put on a race event, and all of those roles. Because if I guarantee that 90% of the people here are just diehard racing fans. The other 10% might just really love catering. That's great too, we need you. But, to do this for a living, you have to love it. And so I think the idea of letting people know that these jobs exist, that they're important, and that these are the people that are behind a winning racing driver. So I think us telling these stories, you and I having this conversation so that it's important and that everyone sees that Formula E thinks that this is important, I think it moves the needle.
I think Formula E always has historically been a place for generating positive change.
It absolutely has, especially when you look at 50% of our personnel are women. We kind of
feel that when you're in the paddock too, right?
Really?
You don't just feel like you're the only woman in a room. You walk in and you don't even notice it.
Our split is 50-50, not because it was a deliberate thing that we have to hire this many women and this many men. It just actually turned out that way. And I think that if you create an environment where people can thrive, you're going to get the best and brightest. And that's what we're going to do.
And finally, how important is it to have a championship like this that does use its platforms to help promote diversity and inclusivity?
I think it's critical because if we can do it, every other series can, and you should.
Might drop on that. Thank you so much, Beth. It was lovely chatting with you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.